Welcome to New Realities. I'm Alan Steinfeld, and today I have with us three of the, I would say, greatest inspirational thinkers in the human potential movement, and they've combined their forces to write this book, The Shadow Effect. And you know, after I read this book, it had a deep impact because it was okay to be me. I felt, you know, all the things I've been ashamed of and guilty about. Everybody has those experiences, and it felt better about myself. And I think if everyone read this book, including my mother, the world would be a better place. In the promo for this book, you said something, Marianne, about you had success and then there were things you weren't successful about. And hearing that from you, someone who's an inspirational thinker who's inspired, you know, Nelson Mandela, that touched me.
Although I have to say, that's a complete urban myth that he quoted that paragraph. I have no idea if he's ever heard of me, so just want to make that.
No, but how you said how you had success and there were things that you didn't feel successful about sort of even the playing field for me.
I think that we all have places, you know, sometimes we have this mythology that one person gets it and another person doesn't. But the truth of the matter is we all have places in us where we're a little ahead, and we all have places in us where we are a little behind. And sometimes in relationships, just in one matching of two people, often that's our best friend, somebody who is a little ahead of us in this area and we're a little ahead of them in that area. They had a different childhood than we did. They had different parents than we did. They had different. I think that you're right. That makes all of us relax a little, knowing that we're all wounded, but it's a wounded world, but we're all here to be healed.
Because it's the incarnational experience. We come in from pure love, as you've all said, and here we are in this path of pain and suffering, and you talk about how to come to understand it and deal with it and own it in a sense.
Well, in Buddhism, they don't use the word soul, even though they mean the same thing. They say that there's a core consciousness that we have. And this core consciousness is part of a collective consciousness, of course, which is a ripple in the universal consciousness. The universal consciousness transcends good and evil. But as soon as it starts to manifest, then it has to through contrast. There's no experience without contrast. If you have hot, only you can know what hot is if you experience cold. Pleasure, pain, up, down, backward, forward, sinner, saint, divine, so diabolical, etc. So if there was only the evolutionary impulse, the universe would rapidly expand and burn itself up into the heat death of absolute zero. And if there was only entropy on the dark side, it would collapse into a black hole before you could say Deepak Chopra. So in order for the play of creation to occur, these forces dance. Now the evolutionary forces are always ahead. Otherwise there wouldn't be any evolution. So you don't have to worry that, you know, there's no evolution. It is happening. And we can favor it by paying attention to truth, goodness, beauty, harmony, love, compassion, etc. But if we have the other impulse, which is of separation, you know, there are only two impulses, unity, separation.
Love or fear,
Love, fear. And if you have the other, then pay attention to it and recognize that it's a universal thing, you know. It's what caused whatever it was, you know, the Adam ate the apple and falls.
So the world is full of light and dark all the time. But I have to say, and Debbie was really inspiration behind this book because she's done that work. It's really the hardest thing in the world to look at your stuff and your junk and pull out all that apparent ugliness and see it shine. And you've made a career out of that. No, but you put your life on the line with who you are all the time.
But I just want to say, I think it's much harder to not deal with the shadow and to go to your death feeling like you were never authentic or you could never relax or you could never really love all of who you are. So for me, even though people are scared of it, I think early in my career, Deepak, when he always talked about that we are the microcosm and the macrocosm, I was just like, well, how could I be everything? And once I really grokked that, which I don't think we could do in this moment, you know, I think it's really something that we have to dwell in, that we are all, you know, we can all be angry and we can all be mean and we can all be selfish and we all can be geniuses and magnificent and beautiful, and that's what the shadow effect is, to give people the remembrance as Marianne does it so beautifully in the book, really of that light, that brilliance that we all are, and to shine the light on the darkness, not think that we're going to get away this lifetime without it.
Thank you.
But how do you remember it? Like sometimes I see you on television, you're attacked by the scientists on the left and the Christian fundamentalists on the right.
And sometimes I lose it.
Right, I saw that. I didn't want to bring that up, but
No, I sometimes lose it. The key is to be natural. You know, if you're putting on a social mask, then you're hurting, and you're not authentic. So as we evolve, then our natural state is one of peace, harmony, joy, love and compassion and kindness. But if once in a while you get sucked into the melodrama, big deal.
So it's a big deal. You forgive yourself, you move on,
You
and
forgive yourself, and in doing so you forgive the other. You know?
Picking up on that notion when she was talking about what's hard, I think this idea that this path of spiritual growth is so hard, but it's hard. What's hard is not doing it. What's hard is living an unconscious life. What's hard is saying something or doing something that you can't even believe you said it or did it, and it was so stupid and it ruined everything. That's the life that's hard. You know, there's a line in the Course in Miracles where it says, the way of spirit is not difficult, it's just different. And the spiritual path of spiritual and personal growth has to do with trying to discipline our minds. There's a line in the Course, you achieve so little because your mind is undisciplined. We're simply talking about principles that are not really difficult. Nothing that we all talk about is difficult. It's just very different than the thinking of the world.
yes, because people become alcoholics because of this. Everything people do to deny this part of themselves. And this book and this discussion and your work brings, like I said, it's okay to have those feelings.
It's also important to recognize that there are certain conditions that will bring out this in anyone. So, you know, when there is abject poverty, when there is social injustice, when there is us versus them mentality, when there's poor leadership, when there's repression, Catholic Church, you know, institution that condemns gay homosexuality as a sin, but then hides pedophiles in its journey, in its clergy.
It's their dark
so,
side.
you know, this actually, it happens a lot more in religious institutions because religious institutions always talk about morality in a very self-righteous way. These are the rules, these are the regulations.
So how do you get to those people?
Well, you don't. You just get to yourself. And, you know, I think if you're interested in helping yourself, looking at this, and when these things arise, anonymity, permission to do harm, poor examples of bad behavior around you, so it almost becomes the norm, then you also start to become part of the hypnosis of social conditioning. So what you say to yourself is, you know, if I'm aware that this is happening around me and I'm getting sucked into it, I may call somebody that I trust and say, you know, this is what's happening. Just like in Alcoholics Anonymous, they share their secrets with each other. I think once you start to share your shadow with others and it diffuses its energy, you embrace it, you forgive it, and you forgive the world, and you move on.
The real seeker isn't trying to get a message out. The real seeker is trying to get a message in. And if you demonstrate that, and you live from that place, that's the greatest way we can share with others the impulse we're trying to live.
And to have role models. You mentioned that woman Edith, who was in the concentration camps, and you said, how did you forgive Hitler? Tell that story, because that made me cry. Really.
It did, yeah. It's an amazing story. She's an amazing woman, and when I met her, you know, we were talking about forgiveness and how you have to let go and forgive, and I said to her, you know, she was in the concentration camp, both her parents died while she was there, and I'm like, you know, how did you forgive Hitler? Did you really forgive Hitler? And she looked at me, she said, of course I forgave Hitler. I wouldn't let Hitler live in my body or my mind one more moment.
See that
was
talking about Nelson Mandela. He said to hold a resentment or a grievance against anybody is like drinking poison and hoping it'll kill your enemy.
Right. But it's also the self. We have to forgive these things that we think we've done in the world and find, you say give it over to God, right? And Debbie says embrace it. And I think you say understand it. I think all of those are important, and not one works for everybody. But
well, there are different aspects of the same process, though, because when I talk about surrendering it to God, you can't change anything that you don't first accept as it is. Just as you can't change anyone else, but you can be a space in which they are so accepted as they are that they naturally transform in your presence. So, like the line in the Course, two things: I cannot take from you, God says, what you will not release to me, and also you can't bring the light to the darkness. You have to bring the darkness to light. So in embracing it, then you're able to own it. That which you don't embrace, you can't own. And if you can't own, it's not yours to surrender. So it's all just different aspects of the same conversation.
it is. So by embracing it, you're owning it. You're saying, yeah, I feel shame.
I am this way. This is an aspect of my personality.
And then it releases something in that.
I think we've talked about this before. Krishnamurti said once that the highest form of human intelligence is the ability to observe your own self without judging yourself. So once you observe, in the mere witnessing of it, there's insight, there's understanding, and there's forgiveness, and there's transformation.
And Deepak just said something I think is, to me, what is imperative for people to remember when they're dealing with their shadow, is that when people can find the wisdom or learn a lesson from any experience or any quality, that allows them to move from this state of acceptance to the state of embracing or transcendence or forgiveness. Yeah, they're transforming because all of a sudden they find value. And I think humans need to find value and to know that they learned and to know that there was some higher reason.
There is a place here where the transformational conversation and the religious conversation is slightly different. They're not at odds, but there are two different views here. Well, from a religious, when I say religious, I don't mean dogma and doctrine and organized religion. I mean religio as in to bind back, which you taught me that. The deeply spiritual. You know, there's a lot of spiritual conversation in the world today that they never get to God. I don't know how it's a spiritual conversation, but they never really get to. So there is one way of looking at it, which is if you witness it enough, it will of itself transform. There is another view, which is more my own experience. It's not about right or wrong, where there have been things in my life where I viewed them. I could tell you all about them. I'd been to therapy. I could write about blah blah blah. But something happened when I said, God, please take this away from me. It's more like in the 12 steps where you have to get that of yourself. You can't make it happen.
And it did happen.
It's so entrenched.
So one final question. Will there always be a shadow? I mean, or is it something that we're evolving beyond, hopefully?
Well, when you're enlightened, there isn't a shadow, but that's a long way off.
Really
Except for you, darling.
The good guys keep winning, but they never actually win. The bad guys keep losing, but they never totally lose, so the play goes on.
Even that, there's something about that. The line in the Course is, you're not perfect or you would not have been born, but it is your mission to become perfect here. I think there's something here. I think for most of us, I know for myself, I always say, I'm not an enlightened master, but I'm so much better than I used to be. At the same time, I think we're living in an urgent moment in history. We do need to think in terms of getting on with it. That path for most of us is now good to great. We have it together, but now let's really have it together. And there is a sense on the planet today. Let's move it on.
So any final words, Debbie, about the shadow effect?
I'd say dig in and enjoy. I mean, Deepak and Marianne contributed such amazing work, and I think it will
Our team leader.
I'm the team leader. I'm the captain. I think it will heal, like you said, it will heal your heart and let you release a little.
It healed me. Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate your time. The Shadow Effect by three very inspirational speakers and people, Deepak Chopra, Deebbie Ford, and Marrianne Williamson. Thank you for watching New Realities. I'm Alan Steinfeld. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate that. And I really was transformed by, I mean, I felt like, oh, okay, it's okay for me to feel guilt. It's okay. It's just, you know, it's okay to be human. Yeah, we have to keep the space like we're not human.
By the way, if everyone declared their shadows, everyone, then no one would have to defend anything anymore.
Exactly.
Can I learn to camp here in the rain? Life is moving in mysterious ways. Will I choose to live here all my days? Changes, changes, changes.